Hello and welcome back, freaks and friends of the channel. You are on Josh's Engine Rehab, and if you don't know or weren't here for it, this is the continuation of our 1956 Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing restoration. And I have been a busy bee. Because last week you saw these, or 2 weeks ago when you saw this thing, there weren't any guides in it. In fact, I'd driven them out because they were floppy, sloppy, bouncing around, making a whole mess. The owner of the vehicle to track down a set of exhaust guides, which the Mercedes Classic Center did have in stock, though they were 7/1000 oversized valve guides, and we needed 2/1000 oversized guides. And then our friends at SI had these old stock, not even listed in their inventory or in their catalog anymore, intake guides, which happen to be 100% correct for the head and the correct press fit diameter that we needed anyways. So we lucked out there. Now it ended up working out. I got these valve guides mounted up in the mill and used it as a lathe. I'll include the video right about here. And I turned the extra 7/1000 of diameter that we didn't need, turned it into a little pixie dust, and then set it at about 2/1000, which is what I want. Generally what my valve guide press fits set to. And this is pretty much the same exact setup. I don't own a lathe, so I mount vices onto the table and grab a lathe turning insert of some type. This is the one that I happened to grab that day. And grab it by a collet, which happens to be very accurate, but I still indicated everything in, make sure we were spinning plumb and true. Turned off my diameter, and we were good to go. For good measure, a little bit of mic action and a little pinch of Scotch-Brite tends to smooth things up a bit, and then you can tend to get them installed without dragging any material. The next issue was I had to size these valve guides, which they're 12 millimeters. 12 millimeters in 2025 is a very uncommon size, and I'll tell you what, if you think you're going to buy reamers or tooling to be able to size a 12 millimeter guide, you're wrong. Not anything readily available, at least. I made a few phone calls. It was Sunday. I borrowed an adjustable reamer, made a few phone calls to some friends, and I went, hey, are any of you old enough to remember how to use these? Because I've never used one. Thankfully, I didn't end up using that. We'll talk about this in a second. I was able to borrow these high-speed steel reamers in 12 millimeter. These are both 472 and 473 reams. Now, these things aren't great for reaming bronze guides, especially a modern manganese bronze guide. So I tried chucking it up in the drill. It didn't work. I ended up grabbing the square drive with this tap handle and ran this through. And then I was able to hone them to size using this old school Sun and Honall. And I used to use one of these every day, not so much anymore. Once I'd gotten them sized, and oh, they look pretty good. Don't mind the little scuffs, that was me dragging measuring tools through there. Once I'd gotten them sized, I was able to cut for new spring pockets, or new seat pockets, and get new valve seats installed, which fortunately I did film. Now the old intake seats and the old exhaust seats were very much lacking for press fit. The exhaust seats had anywhere from 0 to 3/1000 of press fit, depending on where I measured. And I was trying to be something better than a lazy man, and I was also struggling with the idea of pulling all the parts out just for funsies, but I'm glad I did, because when I pulled all the exhaust seats, when I pulled all the intake seats out, I did determine that they had no press fit. Well, by today's standards, they had no press fit. So here's the baggie of dead parts, and we're moving fast here. Oh, that's a dead intake seat. And if you notice, and if I can do a little zoomy action, see all that black soot? That there is combustion. It's combustion if I've ever seen it. These seats were coming loose, and I'd measured anywhere from 3 thousandths to 4 thousandths of press, though they did have press and the holes were overall pretty round. I had to get a little creative with my seat drivers and implement a little bit of external fiery temperature. I heated the head up to about 300 degrees, used a new lubricant for press fit, which I've been experimenting with. I normally use like oil or ARP lube even, since that stuff is free, but I use CMD extreme pressure lube on the seat counterbores while the head was hot. Since everything was at a temperature, it gets all runny and gooey, but sticks to everything really nicely. And it happened to be very, very great for setting up press fits. And lucky me, the seat installs even at 8 thousandths of press fit without incident. So good for me. I didn't junk a $40,000 cylinder head. Now that being said, I did put a final surface on this. Unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed here. I did pick up more porosity than I thought I had. But at the end of the day, it's going to seal a head gasket. I'm cool with that. Getting back into this, welding on it, and just unnecessarily cutting and cutting just to try to get that deck perfect isn't going to jive since this thing is irreplaceable. Now, based on my measurements before, this exhaust valve, it needs to be 60 thousandths above the deck surface, and then the intake valve needs to be 25 thousandths below the deck, and currently it's at about 50 thousandths, and this exhaust is about 80 thousandths above the deck. So I got to cut about 20 thousandths deeper on the exhaust, and then I'll have to cut another 70 thousandths on the intake, and then I'll get that dropped down, and everything will be happy again. I'm sure the intake is a lot less critical in regard to piston to valve clearance, because the intake valve always chases the piston, as opposed to the exhaust valve, which runs opposed to the piston. So as the piston comes up, the exhaust valve also comes toward the piston, and that you'll often have piston to valve issues on the exhaust valve, not the intake. Now, I suppose the next thing I should be doing is getting these intake valves ground. That way I have some nice concentric valves to set up off of. And I did do one, and it happened to be in pretty good shape. Had a bit of run out, but nothing wild. Look at that. That's kind of interesting. It's quite a bit of run out. Yeah, that would be, let's say, over 4 thousandths of run out. Let's just stop here so I can show you. Look at that great big shadow. Now, I did notice that some of these seats were coming loose. And you can kind of see that. I would say the old valve job wasn't very concentric, or valve seats were moving around, and that was just causing a slight bend or beat in the face on this valve a little bit. I'll bet when I go to grind that out, there will still be a couple little pits, and I'm just going to have to decide if I need to keep grinding or not. But they do grind pretty good. It's pretty high quality stainless steel. High quality for the time. And there we are, that valve did come in, so where I stopped was basically the limit for all the run out of that. I just stop. Wait for it to spark out, which means I wait for it to stop grinding. And it has. Let's see. Might not have cleaned up. Nope. That cleaned up just fine. Now let's repeat that 5 more times. Oh. Now these valves, they are the original Mercedes valves, so these are 70 years old, and it shows because there is a little bit of stem wear here that we need to be conscious of. There's not enough wear on this for me to want to condemn this, so I'm just grabbing this right below that stem wear where the stem is round. If I grabbed it where the wear was, I would grind the face in the same shape as that, as the wear on the stem. That's no good. Now I would back cut this, but there's not enough real estate in here for me to fit a second angle on top of the valve job. So it's just going to be a 45, unfortunately. This is another one of those valves that has a bit of corrosion or damage to the face. I'm not going to stop it this time. I'm just going to keep grinding. I've already seen it once. If you've seen it once, you've seen it enough times. I fed that just a little bit harder. I'm going to drag this stone across that face. Let it spark out. And there we go. That's a valve. Now I like to do that because it helps keep the run out in check. I'm a real stickler about run out, especially on a valve face. A lot of people get this wrong because their stupid valve grinders are filthy and not maintained. Mine is not one of those. I dare say I've got one of the most accurate valve grinders in Sonoma County. Oh, one day I'll eat those words, I'm sure of it, but I have not been disproven. And all the valves are numbered. They're going to go back in the same hole they'd always lived in. And then I think, just for good measure, I may cut 10/1000ths off the tips of the valves. I don't know yet, because the valve train is fully adjustable. I'm sure there's enough room in there for 10/1000ths. Later, I'm going to take this, mount it up in the mill, and then just pinch a piece of emery cloth or Scotch-Brite along the valve stem. That'll help improve this finish. I tumbled these things to deburr them. The keeper grooves were a bit beat up, and then I wanted to polish the stems just a bit, but I don't like this dull finish when I'm installing a valve into a bronze guide. So I'm going to just polish this up. It'll shine, it'll get nice and shiny, feel real smooth, and I think this finish will help hold a little bit of oil. So hopefully there's a touch more longevity there. I don't know for sure. The few times I've taken my heads apart and left that tumbled finish on the stems, everything did look pretty good. So it's a working theory at this point for that. That one came right in, and these valves are all over the place.
That doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me one bit. Also, it's been 30 years since this thing got worked on. And done.
In a perfect world, I would have had a bunch of custom valves made for this thing. I would have loved to take this to 11/32 or 341 on intake and exhaust. That would have been awesome. Pick up a little bit of performance on this old machine. But a girl can dream one day. There's a time and a place for custom work. This ain't it. Cut a little goofy, but it came right in, so whatever. And that's the last one, so you know what that means. We can move on to the next step. I'll see you back at the seam guide machine. Now I'm going to point something out, and this is one of the reasons I have trust issues, especially with older shops. Now, this is a high-speed steel pilot. In fact, I'll show you what that should look like. I borrowed this. I borrowed this from my old shop. It's a 12mm bottom, but a 375 top. So it's only going to be as stiff as the top of this. Normally, my pilots are carbide. Stiff as can be. Stiff as hell. Your girl would love it. This is what all your seat cutting tools center off of. The bottom of this goes inside of the valve guide. The top pilots or guides your tools. I also use this, and nearly all shops use these for aligning the seat installer for driving in valve seats. Now, all the explosive forces that this thing experiences, much like your mom last night, often will bend the top of the pilot. That means that however much these are bent, your valve job is going to be misaligned by that much also, and it also becomes really hard to measure with a concentricity gauge, because the concentricity gauge also pilots off of the top of this tool. And you got to do this at 2 points. Here, just forward of the collet, and then moved my dial indicator down here to the furthest point I possibly could, and check the run out. And that's not even between the graduations. I would say that's just a few 10,000ths. I'm good. And in all honesty, there's a couple 10,000ths here. There's probably a touch of run out in my collet, or I just don't have this thing aligned very well. But it's close enough, especially for the girls I go out with. Now, these older shops, and believe me, I got this machine from an older shop. They're often going to have the original tools that they came with. You know, these machines came out in the early 80s, late 70s, and the 90s. If they're still using these steel pilots, not only are they going to be worn out, they're probably going to be bent. If you're cutting a valve job and you've got these old pilots, you are doing a bad job. So please, these are wear items. Replace them. Same thing with the carbide pilots. Those are wear items. Replace them. If you don't check, you don't know. Luckily, these are nice, good quality ductile iron seats. Super hard. They should cut without consequence. And thankfully, these pilots happen to be stiff as hell. It's probably going to go very, very easily for me. Now, while I would love for this to turn into a giant science experiment and fit all the cool guy go fast angles on the valve job, it's just not going to happen. And I've got a multitude of reasons for it. One being, I can't physically fit a cool guy go fast valve job on these seats. And the reason for that is the inside diameter of the valve seats is so large in comparison to the valve, it's just not going to happen. I'll just have a little sliver of that bottom angle on the valve seat, then I'll have the 45, and then I'll have a little sliver of a top cut. A performance cutter like this is quite a bit longer. It needs a lot more space. It's just not going to happen. Now, reason number 2 is I wasn't asked to do that. This is a restoration. While I would love to try to make this thing a little bit better than how it came from stock, it's not going to happen. That's not what this is. I need to be conservative with what I do here. And then while we're here, I want to address the big purple gorilla in the room. And that is the #1 hate comment that I get in my Facebook and YouTube. And it's usually something along the lines of, I would never trust somebody who wears a watch in the shop. Or, Josh, why do you wear a watch? Don't you know that's dangerous? Of course I know that's dangerous. And that's exactly why I do it. No, I'm kidding. It is because I'm not that much of an idiot. As much as you would like to think I am, I just am not. And trust me, it's got great utility in the shop. I use it to keep me off of my phone, and it's been very, very helpful. And I come from that era where Ritalin and all those depressives were very, very popular in the elementary schools, and I, lucky enough, was not subdued by the man in Big Pharma. It's easy to count a minute when you've got a clock right on your wrist. It's also a preference, and I'm not a total idiot in that I know that I should only stick my phalanges in a place where I would stick my pecker. And if you can't live by those rules, then I've got a place for you. It's called California. And it's about a minute now. I'm just going to let off on the pressure and slowly move this table over. And I'll shut the machine off. It's not a precise science, but it's good enough for getting these seats cut. A sharp insert makes all the difference. Now, I've got to admit, ever since I bought this lapidary machine, tool sharpener, it came with this real nice work light. My life has very much improved because all those years that I spent looking at the sun trying to figure out what the meaning of life was, trying to figure out who we were, where we came from, they're starting to catch up with me. Your boy, he can't see as well as he used to. So the simple prospect of setting up a seat cutter in hopes of being able to cut a valve job, oh, they're challenging. The screws keep getting smaller. The tools get screwier. Your boy ain't getting any younger. I think these are supposed to torque to something to the effect of 12 micro inches. Click. I think that'll do it for an exhaust seat. Probably use it this same setup for the intake seat as well. Oh, all right. So this is a pointer. When you put the pilot in there, it simulates your valve. But we're going to put the valve in there. Goofy looking thing. And I'm going to point the pointer at the point on the seat that points the most. I'm on a schedule today, so we're gonna keep moving as fast as we can, because I'm quite poignant, and that's one of my redeeming factors, and oh, I don't have that many. I'm gonna go just shy of the edge of the valve, about 30 thousandths, 40 thousandths off the edge of the valve. Hoping I'll be able to show this to you once it's set up, but I'm just going to put the point here in between the top angle and my seat angle. That's going to look something like this. See what I'm doing? That's where that goes. I need to move that cutter just inward a hair. I'd say that's good. It's a new seat. I don't have to get this perfect. And I'd say we can start cutting. Beautiful. Okay, at this point in my life, I'm going to be real with you. I don't have time for problems, and this thing should go pretty smoothly. You know, I've got enough problems fighting the family court system, battling my baby mama. I don't have time for machining drama. It's relatively aligned. Everything's clamped down really well. This is just a bubble level. This is the bounce spring we'll be using. Let's see. Does it go down? No, it does not. Okay, is this the bounce spring we'll be using? Ooh, that's an issue. Now what's happening here is I can't get this cutter to drop down below this pilot, unfortunately. I'm going to have to switch to a different pilot. I really wanted to use this one. Oh well. There's another one, drops down a bit lower. It'll work just fine. Now the bounce spring is important because that pushes it up into the tool. There's a little cone-shaped driver on the inside of this spindle, and it centers up on that 1-inch ball. Now I'm just going to get the table rollover fixture aligned. All right. Tighten down these knobs. There's another one over there. And we're good to go. Oh. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm only going to cut the first 3 angles. I'm not going to go any deeper after I've cut 3 angles. I'm just going to see where we're at. Just floating this head 1 or 2 more times. Don't know how fast these seats want to cut. I have an idea. Oh, I'm having problems with the switch. Alright. Probably time to replace that switch. Bottom angle that really wants to chatter. So I'm going to have to feed deliberately. But overall, that's cutting quite nicely. That's 3 angles. I think I'm going to have to go down quite a bit. We shall see. That looks quite good. I'm not sure how well that valve's going to bounce because there is quite a bit of clearance here. I looked up what the guide supplier recommended for the valve guide clearance. It bounces, that's not bad. And they were somewhere up near 2.5 to 3.5 essentially. It was like 2.2 to 3.3 on guide clearance. In very German fashion, they had the guide clearance listed in metric, but, you know, we do the arithmetics around here. Wasn't a problem. Okay, let's see. How deep are we? How low can you go? So I went back in my photo galleria, found the pictures of the original gonorrhea, and I've got a valve protrusion on the exhaust side of 28 thousandths-ish above flush, and then the intake valve protrusion or recession is 60 thousandths below flush. So let's see where we're at now. I've broken the battery cover, by the way, so this might shut off. But we're at 37 thousandths, 38 thousandths above flush. So I've got to go down another 10 thou. Easy enough. Can do. Now, second time around, I am at 26.5 thousandths, so I'm going to call that good. I've got a stop set. I'll probably just screw that upward just a hair. And we'll get the rest of those seats cut. It'll go very, very quickly. I'm hoping I can get this video edited real quickly, but if I get this out before the weekend, which I should, it's only Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day, I'm going to do another live stream, and I'll do it with a guest. It'll be Max Darrow, my successor at my old shop. So he's doing all the cylinder head work at RPM, who's one of the guys helping us. We'll be drinking a few brewskis, I'm sure, but the man's a funny guy. So if you've got questions for me, machine shop related questions, machining industry related questions, please comment below. Let me know what you want to know. Let me know what you want to hear. We'll talk about it live with some beers on a live stream this weekend. I would say it'll occasionally you'll hear a little squeaky, farty sound. That's the sound of chatter. This is a ductile iron seat, and it needs active feeding and tool pressure to keep from chattering. And I, being the flawed, broken man that I am, I may not be able to provide what it's asking for. And it was not very well received, that live stream, but I had a ton of fun doing it, so I ain't never gonna stop. That was a Kill Tony reference, but you get it. The live stream was a lot of fun, so I'm gonna make that a regular thing. I don't know how often I'm gonna be doing it. I think we're gonna do the live stream situation at least once or twice a month. I just gotta figure out how to format that in a way that jives with the YouTube algorithm. Ooh, that was chattery. Oh, I don't know what to do here. Do I quickly... Come on, switch. I think it's official. We've experienced our first on-camera machine failure. That switch has seen better days. Oh, that thing's doing things it shouldn't be doing. I think I'm gonna have to run to the store and grab a switch. This ain't... this is a problem. Oh, story of my life. I don't ever get to do anything fun. I get to fix machines. And of course it's down in a hole. Dude, what do I do here? Oh, yeah, that switch is filled. Okay. It's just a rocker switch, toggle switch, on off. It's a standard on-off switch. I can get one right now. I don't have time for this. Oh, there's also a spider living in here, and I don't want to disturb him. Damn it. Okay. We'll be back. You know, I hate to admit, but it took an unreasonable amount of time to locate a new good quality switch. But yeah, this guy is done for. This is supposed to have one detent, one hard detent right in the middle, and it's gotten a bit stiff and melted on the inside. I think this thing's been bad for a while. So, off with it. But we're back in business. So, we'll continue with your scheduled programming. Also, do we not fix things in America anymore? Because I went to 2 stores thinking I'd be able to find this stupid... It's a toggle switch. I can't find a toggle switch? Apparently not. I had to go to Granger and overpay for a toggle switch. But at least it's a good quality one. Nice detents and everything. Well, this should work a lot better because I was kind of struggling with the bad switch. It was kicking on and off at inopportune times. Thankfully, all the work leading up to this point was the bulk of the work. Cutting the seats really, it's really not a big deal at all. But every stage leading up to this was with the intention of hopefully making the valve job go really easy. And, well, it worked out because the valve job is going easy. With the camera out of my way, it's a little bit easier to see what's happening too. What a bonus. And I've lived out an entire lifetime since you last saw me. It's been about 3 hours. One little hiccup in my tight schedule just doesn't jive. Between doctor's appointments and the surprise vet visit, was enough to put me behind at least a couple hours. So I'll be here working late. But that's just how committed I am to giving you a good quality show. Nice. I do like this new switch. It works really well. So this is all the exhaust seats cut. I'm holding, I don't know, a spread of a couple thou. A few of the seats have some very light chatter, like this one, but it's nothing that's going to be a problem. As soon as this engine runs, that chatter will go away. Heat and pressure does terrible and wonderful things. This is what I was talking about. Little sliver of a top and bottom angle. It's going to be the same situation on the intake, though I think we're going to have quite a bit of top cut because I'm going to sink this quite a ways. And in case I don't drive the point home often enough, you don't know if you don't check. So there's your seat run out. Inside of a thou, I'll take it. Now this is important because this has to do with your valve guide wear and the longevity of the part. If you cut a bad seat, it's just not going to work. The valve job being off enough, that'll cause valve guide wear. It'll cause wear to the valve, wear to the seat. In extreme cases, if you have enough seat run out, it can even pop the head off your valve, and that's never good. Do a good job, everyone. Try your best. And if your best isn't very good, do better. With just a little bit of ink, that's our seat placement. Very boring, not fancy at all. Good for longevity. This thing's gonna scream. All of 200 horsepower. Actually, I don't think they even made 200 horsepower, but I think these cars in the early 50s were going 160, 170 miles an hour. This was the fastest car in the world at one time. It's quite an engineering feat, I gotta say. But, you know, we'll get to admire sometime in the near future. That looks quite good. World of difference from the old used valve job that this thing had. It was a grinder valve job too, which, well, there's nothing wrong with a grinder. I mean, I use grinders. It's never going to be as precise as a form tool. I mean, look at that. It was a bit hammered. Yuck. Now, I'm wondering how different our intake valve job's going to be. We'll see. I'll make this one a touch more sporty. So same thing as before. I'm just going to cut the first 3 angles lightly and figure out where we're at, and then figure out how much more I need to cut. It looks like I've got cut quite a bit to get this to work, and we will get to fit a 4th angle. Remember what I said about this going to fight me? Well, it's fighting me. Let's try 1 speed lower. I was cutting at 180 RPM. Now we're going to try... Whoa, that's too fast. We're going to try 90 RPM. That's not going to work either. Now let's try 45. A little bit of fine chatter, but nothing too concerning. I think I can make that a bit better. I'll just have to play around with it. Now there's a fair amount of light chatter here, so I think I'm going to turn the speed back up, and then if I feed really fast, let it cut, lift off, and repeat, I could probably trick it into cutting decent. But concentricity is okay. It tends to have run out when I'm cutting on a slower speed, so that doesn't surprise me. That it doesn't want to bounce a hole. all that easily. But I'm only at 10 thousandths below the deck, so there's plenty of room to play around with this. It might help to switch to my larger cutter body. It might make it a little harder for you guys to see, but I've got a job to do. Now, I made a small mistake. I tried using the smaller cutter body for cutting the intake seats. It ended up being a bit disastrous just because this tool holder was hanging out so far that it was just inherently unstable. So trying to cut those seats was just a noisy, chattery disaster. So I switched the cutter to the large cutter body. Ultimately, this is going to work a lot better, and I did cut one seat very successfully. But I just wanted to show you guys this again. Now I've got the pointer set up with the new valve, and I pushed the valve job, or I set up the valve job to come in right on the edge of the valve. And you can see that pointer is right in between the top cut and the seat angle. So let's get this, whoa, don't drop that. Let's get this brought back over to the machine. I've got one intake seat cut, and I'm still not done here. I'm probably going to grind the intake seat just to 45 to get that surface finish improved. But I was able to fit a fourth angle here. You notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is going to be a significant airflow improvement here. So I don't know, maybe we found 10 horsepower. I'm not sure. But it's not going to be nothing. And that's what the cutter looks like. I just put a 70-degree single angle blade into the cutter body that I used on the exhaust side. And we're going to go ahead and cut another intake seat. I'll spare you guys from the commentary on the other four. But I want to show you guys just how much better that cut compared to how it cut before. The new switch is awesome. I also made another decision. I'll talk about that here in just a second. But it has to do with how deep I cut the seats. I just want to focus on getting this cut. Oh, I'm starting to sound like a frickin' parrot. Chatter, that's the buzzword today. No pun intended. This is a ductile iron valve seat, but it's not just any ductile iron. It's hardened. So it's about 62 Rockwell C, which, if you don't know, that's pretty damn hard. And what's happening is when I cut deep enough, I've got so much cutter engagement or tool engagement that it's wanting to bounce off of the seat and deflect. And when it chatters, that's when you get run out, and that's when you've got a seat quality issue. So partway through, I had to stop, and I turned the speed all the way down to 45 RPM, and I was able to get it to dust in and cut pretty reasonably. But what I'm going to have to do at the end is I'm going to have to grind the 45 here, but and then that'll get me a nice smooth seat all the way across. And that's common, not a big deal. And then I also came in, I'm going to have to do this on a few of the seats. I came in with the 90-degree cutter, and I just shortened the top of this seat. Because this seat was installed just a hair deeper than that one, so the top angles didn't end up being the same diameter. So that 90-degree cut helped me shrink that top angle down, and everything's all fine and dandy in the world. So just got to cut the other four seats and we're good to go. So that slight change that I made, it's a very simple thing, but I think it's going to make a really big difference. Now remember, I originally measured the intake valve depth to be 60 thousandths below the deck. That was before I took anything apart. That was before I did any of this work. And originally, I'd planned on just matching everything. But during the valve job, I discovered that more than likely this thing needed to have the intake and exhaust depths to be the same. And I don't mean from the deck to the top of the valve. That can't be the case because the margin thickness, that's what the thickness of the valve head is here. Notice how thick that is versus how thin that is. And if we put them side by side, you notice that exhaust face is like triple the thickness of the intake face. That's the margin. That has to do with how much heat this thing's going to be able to handle. Intake valves, they don't get hot, so therefore they can be a lot thinner. Exhaust valves, they get really hot, and this one happens to be sodium filled. That's why it's got this goofy little shape on the head. They often are significantly thicker. So therefore you're going to have a much thicker protrusion or a much taller protrusion on the deck side versus the intake valve, which is oftentimes quite a ways in the hole. And that's what's happening here. But what I discovered was the valve stem height, which is happening on the other side. If I'd sunk this 60 thousandths down in the hole, I would have been a full millimeter taller on the intake valve on the spring side compared to the exhaust valve. Now, if I rotate the fixture, I'll be able to show you this. Come on. There we go. Let's lock this down. Oh, I don't want to roll this down all the way, but I mean, there's multiple angles happening here, but the spring seats and the valve guides, they're at the exact same height. If I'd sunk the intake valve as deep as it was originally sunk, there's a few things that happen. The valve springs, they end up being installed at a taller height, which means less pressure. Another thing, since these are mechanical lash adjustment, I think they have a set screw, we'd run out of, we would have effectively less travel, or we'd struggle to be able to set a valve lash with the deeper valve. So what I decided to do, instead of matching the height exactly from intake to exhaust, because that would have been a 40 thousandths difference or a 1 millimeter difference, I decided to split the difference and we're just going to do 20 thousandths. So my intake valve is now 20 thousandths deeper than the exhaust valve. I think we're making an improvement in the right direction there, but we're not going so far away that we're making a big drastic change. So is it going to make a big difference in reality? Probably not, but it means we'll be able to have more travel in our lash adjuster, and maybe we're saving room for another valve job in the future. I don't know. I don't have the rest of the valve train here, but I can't see that being a bad thing. So I'm sure what I saw here really, whoa, what happened there? And I'm sure what I saw, what I observed, really has to do with the age of the cylinder head. This thing's 70 years old. It's probably been worked on once or twice or 3 times. That's super common. So I just saw an opportunity to make a small improvement. Is it the end of the world? Is it going to change this guy's life? Neither's the case, but it's a nice thing to do. And anytime I have a chance to make an improvement on these things, or just make a situation a little bit better, it's always a good thing. So all that being said, when I go to measure the valve depth, I've got about 43, 44 thousandths on that valve, and it's about the same on all the other holes. I'm anywhere from 40 to 45 thousandths, depending on which hole, depending on which valve I'm using. And for reference, I am using the same valve to set all of these up. That way the valve seats are all relatively at the same depth, and then any other discrepancy, it's going to be in the parts themselves. .90 RPM seems to be what this wants. Okay. That looks pretty good. It's the best seat I've cut so far. Okay. So I was turning the machine on and off on that finish cut. That way it would slow down and speed up at a rate that would prevent it from getting into a harmonic and then thus chattering. So that's a little trick that you can do. It's something you'll have to do on this material valve seat when you're cutting seats in the mill too. Nice. Now you guys have made it to the end, and that's an amazing thing. What else is amazing is that you guys have supported this channel and the things I've decided to share with you, which may consist of the odd and obscure, but man, from time to time, it's pretty cool. And in such a short amount of time, we've managed to pick up 51,000 or 52,000 subscribers, followers, cult members, if you will. even when I took my 9-month-long hiatus, the channel still grew. It outgrew similar channels, outgrew peers of mine who posted every week. You know, and they weren't doing anything that was low effort. Maybe some, but it was it's a considerable commitment posting to YouTube. So I gotta thank you guys. I love sharing this little career path that I decided to walk down. And even when I feel like I hate the job, it's fun sharing it with you. So please, I love hearing from you guys. Email me, message me on Instagram, possibly even go in the YouTube comments. Let me know what you want to see. Leave me those questions for the live stream. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We're not stopping. This is only the beginning. You know, eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to make this into my full-time job. One can dream. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue to do this 100% for free because I don't need your money. I just like sharing. But I'm going to warn you guys, brand deals are coming. I've got an email full of them. I've got a little pushback in the past, but this is going to continue to allow me to share on a regular basis. So hang in there. It'll be a good time. It's for a good cause. That is a 1956 Mercedes 300 SL. Valve job, new seats, new guides, welding, resurface, ready to be washed and assembled in the morning. So this is the end of the video. Thank you guys. Love you all. I'm going to come back with something real serious next. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to work on Porsches. I'll see you next time.